Carl and Em here, and we want to talk a little bit about the Life and Death Cafe, which we've just started together. How are you doing, Em?
Not bad. How's you?
Okay, I think we're in quite a relaxed state. We've been chatting before now, haven't we? And
Yeah.
I was hearing what I thought was a nice roaring fire and somebody whittling sticks in this countryside of central Portugal. But I'm going to believe that. I'm just going to go with that in my mind's eye, okay? And I'm having a little breather away from the intensity of family life and focusing our minds here on the Life and Death Cafe. Got you to thank for the Death Cafe idea. And you come on to the Good Morning Portugal show and talk about, well, the ooh in taboo, I called it, in opening up that conversation about death, especially with the angle on, being away from your country of origin in a new country. There's all those bits to deal with, added bits, as well, of course, the big deal of death in our culture. And you're amazing with how you deal with that. And of course, you run. Well, tell us what you do, what you do generally speaking, and we'll get back to the Life and Death Cafe thing.
Well, I suppose I put myself out there. I'm a spiritual psychologist and medicine woman and earth keeper. I'm into sustainable living and living consciously and of course dying consciously. So it's my place in life, my passion as well, to help walk people back to their heart center through just being present and helping them to challenge their fears in a safe space around living and dying. So
And that's the
go on.
person you want, I think, at a Life and Death Cafe. So I'm I'm delighted to be dealing with the technical side and looking after the perimeter so that we create a nice safe space in which people can do that. Not a show, not a webinar. It's not for people to watch and chip in opinions. This is I think I've heard you refer to it as the work, right? This is
Yeah.
really sharing, owning things, authenticity, vulnerability, and perhaps that is the way to get to these issues of the nub, the truth, the reality of life and death in a sharing circle, and for people to
Yeah,
talk to each other and open up their hearts and minds with each other, right?
absolutely. It's all about connection and community. Two really, really important C's. And the third one, compassion. And when we bring the compassion and the connection and the community together, we can bridge huge gaps and huge divides and help people learn to see past the fear that keeps them separate and help them just come together in a community of others, like-minded souls. And even if you don't feel like you're a like-minded soul, we are all the same. We all feel the same. We all want exactly the same things. We're trying to meet our basic human needs, and we can do that through connecting with each other. When we sit at home or we're scared to reach out or scared to talk about things, it stops us connecting to our truth. It stops us growing. It
Hmm.
stops us developing. And we need to start listening and speaking and challenging things, because this is how it used to be many years ago. This is the indigenous way. We went to circles around a fire, we talked, we shared food and drink, and we discussed life, and we told stories, and we shared our fears and our worries, and we came together to support and hold space for each other in that, in that scenario, that picture, that setup. I'm not sure the right word, but what is important is that although we might not so much, especially with the fire warnings in Portugal, be able to join around the great big fire, we can join around our inner fires, in the fires of our hearts, hold space for each other and really connect and share what's going on for us in our lives, how we're not able to do things because of whatever, where we can say, okay, and we can really feel into that and hear you, and we can discuss it together. You know, it's really important part of living is to connect with people. And although we don't always know whether we're right, or maybe we think that we're right, what I do know, what life's taught me so far, is there is no wrong. We're all right. There's no stupid questions. We've all got our own knowledge, our own personal experience. There is nothing silly to ask. There's no silly questions. And it's a safe space where you can challenge your version of right. And we can be there with you during that. It's all part of your personal growth, you know, and together we grow, and together we evolve into a deeper, stronger community.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I think typically, not that I'm a veteran of the Death Cafe scene, but from what I understand and how you shared it, it could be very seemingly mundane technical things like writing a will. And it could also be looking at why we haven't written a will, which might be based on the technicalities, but it might be based on a terrible fear that in sharing in this space that you talk about could be quite a revelation and a comfort ultimately.
Absolutely, but it may be nothing about wills at all, although wills is one of those things, you know, you're laughing because you
Trigger.
know me, Carl, don't you? You know that as soon as it comes to grief and grieving, everything, anytime we're feeling fear, it's due to some part of us that's disconnected from something else. And the amount of grief held in communities, in generations, is wow, it is phenomenal. And to be able to come together and share our grief on things that we've lost, on time that we've lost, on connections that we've lost, on the life that we'd lost, maybe before coming to Portugal, maybe we had our health that was lost. All these things bring about huge amounts of grief, huge waves of grief. And as a community, as a society, really, we don't acknowledge it as grief. We say, oh, just take some pills, it'll be all right, do this, do that. We turn it into almost a medical thing, or we say, oh, don't talk about that, let's talk about something else. That's why we get depression and
Yeah,
things,
what,
because
choking it
we're
down.
suppressing our
Yeah,
feelings.
yeah.
And by sharing these things and saying, do you know what, I feel really like really shy because I've missed out on so much, because I feel like I've had so many years of my life taken away from me because of whatever. And we can sit with that. And I bet you're not alone in your feelings. I know that I've heard that many, well, it's more and more recently. You know, people come to Portugal and they grieve as much as they're getting the beautiful life that they want to live, and there's so many positives. There's also grieving the country you left behind, the family, the friends. Some people, their pets pass away just before they move. There's so many things that they're grieving, the culture, the the Yorkshire tea bags, the Marmite, that it all creates it does. It
Yeah.
creates a form of grief. And you know, you come over here and you grieve for what was. At some point it gets to a stage where you're grieving for what was. But now, here we are. And it doesn't mean that now isn't good. It doesn't mean that now hasn't got really cool stuff happening. It doesn't mean that now is not a better place for you. It just means that you're allowing yourself that truth and that time to process what was and acknowledge it for the amazing times and things that it brought you. You know, it really is honoring that time that's passed and those experiences. and still being able to celebrate the now, making the most of living consciously. And we live consciously through communication,
Yes, and it's
connection.
hard to live consciously, isn't it, if you're being dragged away, if your consciousness is being drained into your anxiety or your depression and your upset or your grief. So that sounds wonderful. Sorry, I had to do a quick cough there. That sounds really lovely. And I'm thinking of calling this Tea Bags, Wills, and Personal Growth. And I could talk for a really long time about some of the things here. Is the opposite of indigenous, ex-digenous, and what might that mean? But let's not go there right now, because what I'd really love to know from you is what these sessions might look like, because I think some people will think, yeah, I could do that. That sounds right. I am moved to join this. But what is it going to be like? Is it going to be, is it going to be an online sweat lodge? And is it going to be terrifying? I think it would be useful to let people know what the format of and the ground rules are for these sessions when we do them. So would you mind highlighting those?
Well, we come together in a circle, and as with all circles, we say hello, introduce ourselves, and make that connection so we know we're not amongst strangers. And we're welcome to share. We don't have to. Maybe you don't feel called or able to share it on that day, but maybe you just want to be present and kind of be there. Just say hi, I'm me, and I'm just want to be present. And one day maybe you'll feel able to share, and maybe you won't. But what we are doing is providing that safe space for you to come and connect and just be present, So you're able to talk if you'd like to. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But it really would help you just say hi,
Yeah.
Thanks for, thanks for the opportunity to hang out,
And it's online. It's online.
It's online, yeah.
Like I said before, it's not a show, because that's what I normally do. It's not a thing with going live out to people with comments coming in and everything. This is a closed circle, closed group.
Yeah,
And
it's not going to
full
be
confidentiality.
pre-recorded or anything. So
No.
you get to take part in it, but your recordings and things, what goes on in the show, they're not a show, stays here, and stays in this space. And we ask that you respect everyone in the space. So when you go away from the circle, that you don't really share or name anyone that was there, because it's a safe container for folk.
And on that matter of recording, I mean, if there's some content, we might record that. But I think for the conversation, we don't need to record anything. So it won't be recorded. It will just be as if we were sat in a room together. And the reason we're not sat in a room together is because of the distance. And, we're looking at a little sort of niche interest here, and the best way for people to come together on that, I think, across Portugal or actually anywhere in the world. This is not geographically bound, is it?
No.
If you can be here in the same time zone, you're welcome if that appeals to you.
Well, yeah, you could be. It's all about matching up the time, isn't it? If you're sat in America or the UK or anywhere, and your diary allows it, it fits in, then you can drop in. You don't have to be there every week, but drop in and join us. It would help to be there present for the whole circle, which will take like an hour, because we want to be there and have a genuine discussion and sharing. And it's the thing that I've noticed with circles is when you come together, there's a magic, there's an amazing way where in that space where we're all held and we're all connected, and amazing things happen in that space. And I'm not quite sure, I haven't got an answer to why. I just know that it does, and it's
going to
quite
ask
an
you.
interesting thing.
I wasn't going to put you on. It is magic. I think it's magic, like you say. And I think given that that's not normal anymore, to have that level of openness and listening, and endeavoring to be as non-judgmental as possible, something that's where the magic can come in, isn't it? And there is a space for the magic to come in and make it something special, potentially, not necessarily,
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen, because there isn't a prescription either. And
Mm.
I think because we don't tend to do that, because family situations and work situations seem to be quite ritualized and formulaic, that magic can't necessarily occur. And we tend to reinforce certain patterns, don't we, in family and work? And this can be a bit different to that. This can be a place to be more authentic and vulnerable and open, in a space where it's safe to do so. So I'm loving the idea and looking forward to taking part in that as well. I'm all for it. And one of my things is that I think it's really important for people to feel like they're being heard. I'd like truly heard, not like a phone in. I want to say this. It's to say it. It's to be able to say it and bear witness to it, and have other people bear witness to it, and then examine it and be with it. That's the thing, isn't it? So it's not about, like you said, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about being heard. It's about sharing and seeing what happens, I guess, in that potentially magical space.
Mm.
Anything else that you would like to add?
Just like to invite people to come and give it a try. I've ran Ho'oponopono circles, and they've been incredibly helpful for people that hold on to something that they can't share. They call it Give It To Me, and they have these Give It To Me events, and people will come and you kind of say, give it to me, and they say what it is that they've been holding their whole life, and they're able to share that maybe they stole someone's lollipop when they were 6 years old and they've never been forgiven for it, at which point then they can release that. And it sounds so small, but honestly, sometimes things like that, there's things that we carry, and over time that weight gets higher and higher and it's harder to carry. We're giving people an opportunity here to be seen, to be heard, and it isn't silly. And if it matters to you, it matters to us, and we genuinely care and want to be providing space and sharing space with each other, to allow you to live your best life. And that means sharing these things,
It does, doesn't it? And I love that example, because it happens, doesn't it? People have a traumatic situation based on something seemingly quite trivial and try to whatever from the past, but it can live on, and it can govern how we run the rest of our lives. And I have the personal experience of my life being run by a 5-year-old. Not just when I was 5, when I was 25, 35. It's taken me a while to grow out of it. So that's the lovely invitation. Thank you on that. And I know we could talk more, but let's leave it at that for now, to see who might be interested in coming along. And there will be some details beneath wherever you see this recording to get involved and come along and join in that sharing and in that circle. Cheers, Em. I'll leave you to get back to your stick whittling in front of the fire.